I'm in Isaiah chapter 19. Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 1. It says, the burden of Egypt. Burden, like prophecy. The prophecy concerning Egypt. You know, the burden of Egypt is a prophecy of what's going to happen to Egypt right before and right after the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. So Isaiah is giving you the burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. So the Lord, imagine this, the Lord riding upon a swift cloud. What does that put you in mind of? Revelation 1:7, when he comes back at the second coming. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him. What else? Acts chapter 1, 9 through 11, where they see a cloud receives him out of their sight, and they're like, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go. And he's riding up on a swift cloud right here. And in Psalm 104 and verse 3, it says, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind. That's some incredible verses right there. He maketh the clouds his chariot. In Psalm 18 and verse 10, look what else he rides. And he rode upon a cherub and did fly. Yeah, he did fly upon the wings of the wind. Great verses there. The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud. Reminds me of Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. They're going to move. They're going to fall to the ground like Dagon over in 1 Samuel 5. That false god Dagon, that Philistine god, he just falls right down to the ground. When they try to put the Ark of the Covenant in there with him, and he just falls to the ground. The Lord wasn't having it. The idols of Egypt are going to be moved at his presence, just like that. And the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. He's going to melt their hearts. Common saying. The Bible's full of common saying. He's going to melt their hearts. 2 Thessalonians 1:8, it says, in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God. That's how he comes. It says, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, in verse 2. And they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. That reminds me of Matthew 10:21. In Matthew 10:21, referring to the tribulation time period, it says, and the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, and the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. It also reminds me of Matthew 24:7-8. Matthew 24:7-8, which also is talking about the tribulation time period. Matthew 24:7-8 says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Also, Mark 3:24-26. He says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. And see, the Lord is going to put Isaiah 19:2, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. They're not going to be able to stand. They're going to fight amongst themselves. So, anytime you see somebody trying to pit you against somebody you're supposed to be together with, you're dealing with somebody that's trying to take you down, most likely. Verse 3, and the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof. It's going to break their spirit. And he says, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. See, their counsel isn't from the Lord. Their counsel is from all this other stuff. And it says, and they shall seek to the idols. But the idols, remember, they can't see, they can't hear, they can't walk. He says, and they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits. A charmer, somebody that uses little charms, put you under a spell. And to those that have familiar spirits. You know, they got a spirit that's familiar with people, so therefore they can deceive people. You know, spirits been around for a long time. They've been around you for a long time. They know some things about you. They know some things about people in your family that are dead and gone. That's how they can, these people that have familiar spirits, they can know information about your family that's dead and gone that only you would know. So it makes you think, well, these people are good. They're from God or something. No, they just got familiar spirits. They're not really talking to your ancestors. But Egypt going to seek to the idols, to the charmers, to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. You know, people that do wizardry, do spells. They learn it from books, wizards. They learn all this stuff from wizardry books. And also obviously connected with devils. And, you know, Saul, King Saul, he couldn't get nothing from God anymore. He couldn't get nothing from prophets anymore. He couldn't get nothing from the Urim and Thummim anymore. So what did he do? 1 Samuel 28:7, he sought after the witch of Endor. He sought after somebody, a witch with a familiar spirit. What you need to do, though, is like Isaiah 34:16 says, seek ye out the book of the Lord and read. It says, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord. That's what the nation deserves. That's what America deserves. We don't deserve to have a great president or anything like that. We deserve somebody that's not good. And that could happen. You know, God will give a country what they deserve. And it says, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, said the Lord of hosts. There's your prophecy of the Antichrist. He's called a fierce king in Daniel 8:23. And the waters shall fail from the sea, and the river shall be wasted and dried up. Just like you see in the tribulation, Revelation 11:6, those two witnesses, they're going to have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. You're going to see drought. It says in verse 6, and they shall turn the rivers far away, and the brooks of defense shall be emptied and dried up. The reeds and flags shall wither. So those brooks, those bodies of water, that can't be crossed easily, are good for defense, but all that's going to be dried up. And it says, the paper reeds by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brooks shall wither, be driven away, be no more. The paper reeds by the brooks, like papyrus, where you get papyrus from. All that's going to be withered, driven away, be no more. Then verse 8, the fishers also shall mourn, and they that cast angle, like an angler, they that cast angle into the brooks shall lament. They're going to be mourning and sorrow, crying about this. No more going fishing signs. Can't be going fishing no more. Fishing industry is going to go bad. And they that spread nets upon the waters shall languish. Moreover, they that work in fine flax, and they that weave networks shall be confounded. The work in fine flax, like the cotton crops, are going to fail. Verse 10, and they shall be broken in the purposes thereof. All that make sluices like streams of water that they make, like they make their own little body of water and ponds for fish. They make their own little bodies of water, put fish in it for fish farming. They're going to be lamenting. They're going to be in sorrow because that's going to be taken away because of drought. Now verse 11, it says, Surely the princes of Zoan are fools. The counsel of the wise counselors of Pharaoh is become brutish. How say ye unto Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings. So the princes of Zoan are fools, and their counsel is foolish. The counsel of the wise counselors of Pharaoh is become brutish. Brutish, like a brute, a beast. It's ignorant. It's insensible. It's stupid. You know, the world has all these great wise people that they want to go to, but wisdom without God in the Bible is just worldly wisdom. It's no good. And God says in 1 Corinthians 1:20, where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Hath not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For after that in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. You know, Paul talks about in Romans 1, people who profess themselves to be wise, they become fools. There are so many incredibly smart and incredibly wise, and when it comes to worldly wisdom, but they don't know God and they don't know the Bible, so therefore they know nothing. They know nothing of great importance, and if a man knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know. If a man think he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know. So he says, surely the princes of Zoan are fools. How can you people be so smart, but yet so stupid? How can a person know all about the inner workings of your body, yet not believe that God made that body? How can a person know so much about space and the world, but yet don't believe that God made that world? That don't believe God made the sun, the moon, and the stars? How can you be so smart, yet so stupid? He says, surely the princes of Zoan, and Zoan is the place where God did wonders in Egypt. It's an Egyptian town. He says, surely the princes of Zoan are fools. The counsel of the wise counselors of Pharaoh is become brutish. How say ye unto Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings? You know, it doesn't matter who you're the son of. You know, what did the Pharisees say? We have Abraham to our father. It doesn't matter who your father is. It matters, is God your father? Are you a son of God? But they say, I am the son of the wise, the son of ancient kings. It doesn't matter. Where are they? He says in verse 12, where are they? Where are thy wise men? You know, bring them out to me. Let's talk. Where are they? They're so smart. They're so great. They're so wise. And it says, and let them tell thee now, and let them know what the Lord of hosts hath purposed upon Egypt. Look at Isaiah 41 real quick. He says something similar. Isaiah 41, 21 through 24. He says, produce your cause, saith the Lord. Bring forth your strong reasons, saith the King of Jacob. Let them bring them forth, and show us what shall happen. Let them show the former things what they be, that we may consider them, and know the latter end of them, or declare us things for to come. Show the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that ye are gods. Yea, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed and behold it together. Behold, ye are of nothing, and your work of naught. An abomination is he that chooseth you. You see, your idols can't tell you nothing. These very intellectual guys that think they know everything outside of God can't tell you nothing. It says in verse 13 of Isaiah 19, the princes of Zoan are become fools. You know, just like Today, those politicians everybody looks up to, they may be smart, they may be very wise concerning certain things, but they're fools, according to the Bible, because they don't care about God, they don't care about the Bible, they don't care about salvation. The Bible's just black words on white paper to them. It means nothing to them. Just like here, the princes of Zoan are become fools. The princes of Noph are deceived. Once again, Egyptian towns. Noph on the west side of the Nile, about 50 miles from the top of the Red Sea. Zoan, an Egyptian town. It says they're deceived. Evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. 2 Timothy 3:13. It says they have also seduced Egypt, even they that are the stay of the tribes thereof. The stay. The stay here, that's something that you lean on. You see, they're leaning on them. Israel had been leaning on Egypt. That was their stay. In other places you see it read as their stay and their staff. That's where they were getting their support, their safety, their security. The stay of the tribes thereof. The Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. Now, that goes contrary to what a lot of people think about God. But throughout the Bible, you see God will use perverse spirits, unclean spirits, lying spirits, the devil himself, to get in there and put a judgment on people. Just like over in 1 Kings 22 through 23, the Lord sends a lying spirit and puts him in the mouth of all those false prophets of Baal. I mean, the Lord uses the devil to whip his children many times. He'll allow the devil loose on them to whip his children, to bring them back to him. And here the Lord mingles a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. And they have caused Egypt to err in every work. Err means to just wander from the right way. See, God will allow you to just wander further and further from the right way, so that you'll have even more trouble as a judgment, as a punishment. They have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. And you'll see that drunkenness, never in a good light in the Bible. Alcohol is not in a good light in the Bible. Now, Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool, we've been talking about fools, so a fool returneth to his folly. You know, they'll get drunk, they'll go vomit, and then they'll go right back and do the same thing again. Isaiah 28 and verse 8 says, for all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, that there is no place clean. You see, it's just drunkenness associated with vomit, associated with filthiness. And that perverse spirit has caused Egypt to err in every good work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. Neither shall there be any work for judgment, any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. You see that head or tail, branch or rush? Those are expressions that denote authority. You know, when the Bible talks about the head of a people, the tail of a people, the branch or rush, men in the Bible are compared to trees. So you got branch and rush. It's talking about people. Head or tail, branch or rush. And there isn't a great work any of the authority can do to stop this. They can't do nothing to stop it. There's nothing they may do to stop it. And there's just no work for the people. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. And it says in verse 16, in that day shall Egypt be like unto women. You know, what happens when a big catastrophe happens? Women are afraid. Women, as a general rule, get more afraid than men. So he's saying Egypt will be like unto women. And it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord of hosts, which he shaketh over it. It's going to be like waking up from a bad dream. You know how when you wake up from a bad dream, in those first few seconds, you're still kind of afraid from the dream? Well, in that day, and note the phrase in that day, because when you see that phrase in that day, it puts you in the context of the tribulation and the second coming. And in that day, Egypt's going to be like a woman, afraid and in fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord of hosts. Hebrews 10:31 says it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Verse 17, and the land of Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt. So Egypt's going to fear Israel. Everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself, because of the counsel of the Lord of hosts, which he hath determined against it. When God determines something, it's going to happen. And in that day, in verse 18, there you see the phrase again, putting you in that tribulation, second coming context, millennium context. In that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan. So in the millennium, you're going to see they speak the language of Canaan. He's going to turn to them a pure language. Zephaniah 3 and verse 9, it says, for then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. The Lord restores biblical Hebrew. He's going to give them a pure language. And swear to the Lord of hosts, one shall be called the city of destruction. 5 cities in the land of Egypt shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan, and swear to the Lord of hosts, one shall be called the city of destruction. Verse 19, in that day, there it is again. You see that phrase again. Just since verse 16, we've seen it 3 times. In that day shall there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. So you see, in the millennium, they're going to have to worship the Lord. He's going to be ruling with a rod of iron. And if they don't worship the Lord, Zechariah 14, 18 through 19 says this, and if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague, wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the feast of tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt, and the punishment of all nations that come not up to the feast of tabernacles. Look at Zechariah 14, 16 through 17. It says, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, all those nations that come against Jerusalem at the second coming, the people that's left of those, shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. So in the millennium, if they don't come up to worship the Lord, they don't get no rain for their crops. And what have we been talking about in here? They're seeing drought right here. So if they don't want that drought again, they're going to have to come up to worship in that day. So verse 19, Isaiah 19:19, in that day shall there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. And it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. For they shall cry unto the Lord because of the oppressors, and he shall send them a Savior and a great one, and he shall deliver them. And the Lord shall be known to Egypt, and the Egyptians shall know the Lord in that day. There's the phrase again. and shall do sacrifice and oblation. Yea, they shall vow a vow unto the Lord and perform it. So they're going to turn to the Lord. This is going to be the greatest time the world's ever seen. To where everywhere you go, you got people worshiping the same true God. And the Lord shall smite Egypt. He shall smite and heal it, and they shall return even to the Lord, and he shall be entreated of them, and shall heal them. In that day, there's your phrase again, shall there be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria. And the Assyrian shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptian into Assyria. And the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. So you got this highway going out, and it's going to be how they can get to Jerusalem. Isaiah 11:16 says, and there shall be an highway for the remnant of his people which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. Isaiah 19:24, in that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt and with Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the land, whom the Lord of hosts shall bless, saying, blessed be Egypt my people, and Assyria the work of my hands, and Israel mine inheritance. So you're going to have everybody in every place worshiping the same Lord. Obviously, you're going to have like an underground working of people that will go against the Lord Jesus Christ at the end of the 1,000-year reign. But as a general rule, for the most part, everybody everywhere is going to worship the Lord.